Early in the morning, the Persian queen stepped into the Seven Treasures Hermitage looking unusually grave and perplexed. She approached the Buddha, respectfully lowered her head, and said, "Venerable teacher, I've come today because there's something on my mind that I cannot resolve. Recently, back in the city of Shrivasti, I saw something that left me feeling unsettled for days. There's a merchant in town who has been practicing acts of generosity year after year. He not only gives generously to those in need, but also supports monastics, fully demonstrating the virtue of giving. Normally, someone who does so much good should receive abundant merit and experience fortunate results. Oddly, his business has not prospered at all. In fact, it keeps declining, and now his expenses exceed his income. I'm so confused. Generosity is supposed to be a way to accumulate blessings. Could I be mistaken? Why is this happening?" The Buddha paused for a moment, then smiled and said, "Your Majesty, the connection between giving and merit is not as straightforward as most people think. To truly grasp this, let me share a story with you. Perhaps Sudatta's journey will help clarify the subtle relationship between generosity and blessings. Sudatta was born into a wealthy merchant family. Growing up, he was exposed to his family's business acumen and inherited the family trade when he came of age. With keen insight and diligent management, the family business thrived, and the wealth accumulated like a rolling snowball, ever growing. Over time, his reputation in the commercial world soared, and people looked up to him as an exemplary merchant. Yet despite his increasing fortune, there was a persistent longing in Sudatta's heart, a longing for the blessings that come from a meaningful life. This yearning was not just about greed for wealth, it was about seeking a deeper purpose. He began to wonder whether offering help and doing good deeds could bring more merit, possibly even more good fortune, for his family. Sudatta's acts of giving then became broader and more public. He generously gave to those in need, expanding his charity beyond his relatives and friends to everyone in the city. One day, while traveling on a small path outside the city, he encountered an ascetic monk. This monk looked different from most he had seen. His clothes were humble, and the calluses on his hands suggested long periods of rigorous practice. Yet he appeared calm and composed, and his clear, tranquil gaze inspired deep respect in anyone who saw him. Sudatta felt moved and approached him. With sincere humility, he said, "Respected one, it seems you haven't had a proper meal in a while. Would you allow me the honor of offering you food at my home?" The monk smiled gently and looked into Sudatta's eyes, as if weighing his sincerity, then nodded in agreement. From that day on, Sudatta provided daily offerings of food to the monk, and his business became even more successful. Deals that had once been stuck or unpaid debts started to resolve, and new opportunities arose one after another. Each act of generosity filled him with indescribable joy. He became convinced that giving was indeed the path to accumulating merit, so he expanded his efforts throughout the city. Whenever he saw a monastic carrying an alms bowl, he gave generously. He even founded a charitable organization to help those who were poor or alone. Word of his kindness spread far and wide. People praised him as a person of great virtue, and he relished the fulfillment and respect that came along with his generous actions. This only strengthened his belief that giving was the right way to gain blessings. However, as his acts of charity continued to grow, something began to shift inside him. At first, his generosity was simple and pure, with no expectation of return. Over time, though, a quiet sense of anticipation crept in. He started thinking, "I gave so much this time, surely I'll receive more merit, right?" He began to compare his giving with that of other merchants, worried he wasn't doing enough and concerned that he might be missing out on greater blessings. Anxiety replaced the natural happiness he had once felt, turning giving into more of a duty or a burden. Each time he offered something, he found himself calculating the cost in his head, and he judged whether each recipient was worthy of his support. Gradually, he lost the joy and pure mindset he had once experienced. His business took a turn for the worse. Debtors started dragging their feet on payments, reliable partners defaulted on agreements, inventory stacked up, and losses came one after another. The more he tried to fix the situation by increasing his giving, the more his business faltered. Eventually, he began to doubt the value of generosity altogether. Was it really leading him anywhere? Had it become ineffective? Just when Sudatta was on the brink of losing hope, a change quietly arrived. One day, a humble traveler appeared at his shop. The man looked like a typical beggar but carried himself with a certain dignity and depth. As usual, Sudatta prepared to give something, but the traveler raised his hand to pause him and said, "Please wait a moment, kind donor. Before you offer anything, may I ask you one question?" Sudatta was puzzled but nodded. The traveler looked intently into Sudatta's eyes and asked, "Do you know why you give?" It was as though a bolt of lightning shot through Sudatta's heart. He felt a surge of emptiness and confusion because he realized he had lost sight of his original intention. At first, he had simply wanted to help beings in need, but now, behind his giving lay a craving for returns and a calculation of merit. In that moment, he felt as though a fog had lifted from his mind. Sudatta was still in the midst of this realization when something extraordinary happened. The traveler suddenly radiated a brilliant light that filled the space around them, revealing a majestic aura. It turned out he was none other than Samantabhadra Bodhisattva in human form. Stunned, Sudatta dropped to his knees, pressing his palms together in profound awe and gratitude. Samantabhadra smiled kindly and asked Sudatta, "Why are you troubled?" Sudatta could only voice the question closest to his heart. "Respected one, I always believed generosity was a path to build merit, but now I feel stuck. I can't recapture the simple joy I once knew. What is the true meaning of giving? Why, after all my efforts, do I feel so far from its benefit?" With gentle compassion, Samantabhadra replied, "Giving is not simply about sharing material possessions. It has deeper layers and higher levels. Your confusion stems from the fact that you've only seen the surface and haven't yet grasped its true essence." His voice was soothing, like a spring breeze. "There are 3 levels of generosity," he continued, "and you are currently dwelling in the first." Sudatta listened intently. "Please guide me. What are these 3 levels?" Samantabhadra explained, "The first level is about outward acts, material offerings. You might give away your wealth and help others, but if you only do it to gain something in return or to accumulate superficial merit, then it stays on that first level. Even if the act appears selfless, hidden expectations and desires for reward stain it, preventing you from experiencing the deeper purity of giving." Sudatta nodded slowly as he began to see why he was no longer satisfied with his efforts. Samantabhadra went on, "The second level concerns the mindset behind the giving, your intention. True generosity isn't just about what you give, it's about how you feel when you give. If your heart is full of calculations and desires for personal benefit, then your giving becomes tainted." "What do you mean by a tainted mind?" Sudatta asked. His curiosity piqued. "A tainted mind is one that clings to returns," Samantabhadra explained. "When you give hoping to receive something back, you transform your act into a transaction, and that's not genuine generosity. In the beginning, your kindness arose from genuine joy and compassion for others, but as soon as you started hoping to gain merit, you lost the essence of true giving, turning it into a bargain. When muddy water is poured into a clear stream, it can neither nourish others nor remain pure itself." Sudatta bowed his head, reflecting on his own actions. Samantabhadra continued, "The third level is called the threefold emptiness, a state beyond the idea of a giver, a recipient, or an object of giving. In this level, the sense of I who gives, the other who receives, and the thing being given all disappear. Any notion of separation dissolves, and your mind merges completely with the act of giving. At that point, generosity transcends worldly cause and effect. It resides in a state of letting go and taking nothing for oneself." Sudatta listened, utterly captivated. It was as if a window that had been sealed for ages had suddenly opened inside him, filling him with an indescribable sense of awakening. Samantabhadra observed his expression and smiled. "In the beginning, your giving was pure and joyful, unclouded by hidden motives. Later, as you yearned for reward, your generosity became transactional and you lost its true meaning. Real giving must be free of clinging and expectation. It is a path to liberate the heart, and at the same time it eases the suffering of others. You help others, but you also transform yourself." With Samantabhadra's words, it felt as though a fresh spring had begun to flow through Sudatta's heart. Clearing away confusion, he bowed deeply and said, I understand now. Generosity is not just about handing over possessions, it's a profound inner practice. I should not hold on to the hope of personal gain. I should give out of genuine concern for others' well-being. The real meaning of giving lies in expecting nothing in return and keeping the mind clear. Samantabhadra seemed pleased. Sudatta, your insight shows that you already have strong spiritual roots. Remember, these 3 levels of generosity aren't just about helping others. They're also about purifying and elevating your own heart. Once you reach that highest level, the emptiness of giver, receiver, and gift, generosity becomes more than a simple deed. It turns into a form of wisdom and merit that knows no bounds. Sudatta felt these words imprint themselves deeply upon his soul. He realized the key to generosity wasn't the amount he gave, but the mindset from which he gave it. From that moment, he resolved to change his approach completely, choosing not to focus on how much he gave or what he might get in return, but rather on maintaining a pure intention. He reflected on all his past experiences of giving and recognized that, though it had seemed selfless, he'd often held onto the hope of receiving some form of reward. To correct that mindset, he began to center himself before each act of generosity. He reminded himself that the purpose of sharing wasn't to accumulate personal merit, but to lessen the hardships of others, to feel genuine compassion for their struggles, and to do what he could to help. Before giving anything, he would remind himself to let go of any desire for reward and keep his mind calm and caring. When he gave, he no longer dwelled on how much he was parting with. He focused on whether he was acting with a pure heart, free from anxieties and calculations. Surprisingly, as his attitude changed, the world around him shifted too. The worry and restlessness he used to feel faded away, and even his financial troubles began to ease. Outstanding debts were repaid, old business partnerships repaired themselves, and new opportunities appeared. But this time, Sudatta didn't cling to any of it with excitement or self-congratulation. He was no longer chasing external results. Instead, he drew peace and joy from the calm clarity in his heart. Stories about Sudatta's transformation spread all over Shravasti. People not only admired his charitable deeds, but also the inner growth he experienced along the way. Many came to seek his guidance, and he patiently explained, generosity isn't just handing over material goods, it's a spiritual practice. The key isn't the quantity you give, but the mindset you hold when you give. If you're genuinely concerned about others' welfare, if your heart is free from selfish motives or thoughts of reward, you'll find that giving itself is its own blessing. He shared how he finally understood a teaching from the Diamond Sutra about acting without attachment. It emphasizes that we shouldn't cling to the idea of who is giving, who is receiving, or what is given. When we rise above these appearances, giving becomes a catalyst for our own spiritual growth. We realize that true merit is rooted in how it transforms our hearts, clearing away selfishness, attachments, and false expectations. Hearing this, the Persian queen felt enlightened as well. She realized that on the path of spiritual practice, every good deed we perform is not defined by its external outcome, but by the inward shift it creates. When we give with a pure mind, expecting nothing and cherishing nothing for ourselves, we take another step closer to awakening. At the heart of it all lies the training of our own minds. As the Buddha once said, when the mind arises, all things arise. When the mind ceases, all things cease. Through genuine generosity, we gradually dissolve our inner restlessness and attachments and open ourselves to a state of greater peace and insight.